Hi, I'm Amy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to share some fantasy books with you that are some of my all-time favorites. Fantasy has been a favorite genre since pretty much as long as I can remember, but there are some that stand out. I will share some with you that are more modern or more recent, but I wanted to start out with some of my all-time favorite series, favorite authors, actually, I don't think I have any standalones. But yeah, so let's get started. First off is an author you'd probably have to live under a rock to not have heard of before. It's J.R.R. Tolkien. I grew up watching the 1977 animated film The Hobbit. Really enjoyed that, and then in high school I checked all of the books out from the library. So I have copies that I bought from library sales and from secondhand stores. The Hobbit, Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and of course The Return of the King. I spent a lot of time at the library in high school, and at one point I ran into a friend and they told me that if I liked Lord of the Rings, I really needed to check out this next author. So next I have Terry Brooks, starting out with The Sword of Shannara. In this we follow Flick Ormsford, who is one day visited by a mysterious druid who tells him that he's the last of his bloodline and he's the only one that can wield a weapon that can defeat the evil king that is going to destroy the entire kingdom and try and take over the world. It has elves, it has magic, there's druids, gnomes, all kinds of manner of things, but it's a very unique world where there are artifacts or abandoned cities that have old technology. So it's like an Armageddon style world that has returned to magic. There's a really great adventure. I really enjoyed the characters. I really enjoyed the world building, and it's definitely one that I would recommend if you like books like The Lord of the Rings. Also by the same author, we have Magic Kingdom for Sale Sold, which is another fantastical, magical world, but it starts out with a lawyer who is dealing with the grief of, I believe he lost his wife and child, and he's just depressed, he's grieving. It's been a couple of years since he lost them, but he gets a mail order catalog that is advertising this kingdom that's for sale, and on a whim he decides to buy it. But little known to him, it actually exists, and he gets transported to this magical world where suddenly he's the king of a kingdom with a mismatched group of a wizard and a dryad and this talking dog, and also an evil wizard that has vowed to duel to the death any king that takes over this kingdom. So it's a really fun adventure. There's a lot of comedy in it. I just really enjoyed this series. There's a third series that I don't actually have a copy of, because at the time when I read these, I checked most of them out from the library, but it's called Running with the Demon, and at first I really wasn't interested in that one. I thought it was, it's set in modern day times, and I wasn't really interested in books that dealt with demons at the time, but eventually I did end up picking it up, and I loved that one as well. You follow a young woman who is approached by this stranger who says that they want her to protect this child. It's almost like a biblical story where they don't just want her to take this child and protect it. They actually expect her to carry it and birth it. So it starts out, it sounds kind of weird, but it really is great. There's a lot of turmoil that is happening around this town that she lives in. There are demons that are influencing the townspeople, trying to incite violence and just chaos. But yeah, so Terry Brooks is definitely one of my favorite authors. The next series is one that was recommended to me by my brother-in-law. He let me borrow the few books that he had, and once I finished reading them, I definitely continued on to read anything I could find at the library and collected them over the years. But it's Dragonlance by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. It's inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. As a matter of fact, I read, I think it was an article, or they had a note in the back of one of the books that said that one of the battle scenes in the book was actually a campaign battle that the authors had played in Dungeons and Dragons. So I thought that was very interesting and unique. But it's definitely a fantasy world following elves, dragons, a race called the Kinder, a group of friends. Just, they don't really want to be heroes, but they are dragged into this wild adventure, and I really enjoyed the world building and the characters, and it's definitely one that I would recommend if you like Lord of the Rings and anything that is similar, or Dungeons and Dragons. So yeah, that's Dragonlance by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. The next author was a recommendation from one of my best friends. We really enjoyed reading both series and then discussing them together. So first we have Sword Dancer, the Sword Dancer Saga by Jennifer Robertson. We follow two main characters. There's Tiger, who was born in the desert. He was a slave at one point, and now he's kind of a sword for hire. And then we have Dell, who was born in an ice kingdom where she was trained by masters to become a sword dancer, and she's on a quest now to find a brother who went missing years and years before. But she can't traverse the desert on her own. It's harsh, and she's not used to the heat. So she ends up teaming up with Tiger to go and try and find her brother. And I really love the dynamic between the two of them and the relationship that develops over the series. And then we have the Chronicles of Shae Suli. This is the 7th book in the series, but in this series it's kind of medieval. We have a kingdom with, of course, kings and I think knights. Hello, Mikasa. And then we have a tribe of people that kind of reminds me of an indigenous tribe, but they have this unique ability where they will bond with an animal when they reach of age, and that animal gives them the ability to shapeshift into that animal. But it's definitely a very magical series. There is a prophecy at one point in the series. The characters are really intriguing and interesting, and I love the world building. And there is an aspect of the bond between the warrior and the animal where if one of them dies, then the other one pretty much wanders off to die also. But yeah, this was another of my favorite series. The next book I got from the Science Fiction and Fantasy Book Club, which I used to be a member of for many, many years. But you would be sent a catalog. They had a monthly book that you could either say, yes, send it to me, or no, I don't want this one. But this one is called The High House by James Stoddard. And I used to think this was a standalone book, but when I looked it up to see if it was still available, it's actually a series. So we follow Ben, who has inherited this house and he's become the steward of it. And I think it's called Evanmore. But this house is kind of central to the universe. So one of the blurbs that I saw online was that if the lamps go out, then the stars die. And if the clock stops, then time ceases to be. So there's different rooms in this house that lead to different countries, and he's become the steward of this. But there's something going wrong, and I think someone has even stolen the keys to these doors. But it was a book that really stood out to me and stuck in my mind. I really want to reread it, and since I now know it's a series, I want to complete it and read the other two books. But it was just a really unique world, and I really enjoyed Ben as a character. So yeah, this one is The High House by James Stoddard. The next author that I want to share with you is Mercedes Lackey. Like many of these series, I started out reading pretty much anything I could find in the library by her. We have, this particular one is called Burning Brightly, and there are several books that are set in this world. I really loved all of the characters and the world building. We don't always follow the same characters, but it's magical. There are horses that can talk to their bonded telepathically. There's queer representation before it was even really a thing. But it's set in, I think, the kingdom of Valdemar for the most part. But I really enjoy these books. I wish I could tell you more about it, but it's been forever since I've read any of them. I definitely want to go back and reread many of them, and I have a few that I haven't read yet at all. So this is this series, and then she also has one that is called The Kingdom, or The Tale of the 500 Kingdoms. This one is The Fairy Godmother, and this one, the magic system is really unique. So it will take circumstances in the characters' lives, and if it lines up even minutely with a fairy tale or a fable, then it will change their fate to match that fairy tale or fable. So if your mother dies when you're young and your father remarries, fate will set it so that your storyline follows a Cinderella storyline. And the fairy godmother is kind of the steward of this magic. She tries to help manipulate those around her that have been affected by this magic. So she'll try and change their fate if the story ending is going to be bad. Or if she feels like somebody needs to be punished, then she'll kind of lead them towards a path that will turn them into a donkey, so that they can learn their lesson. But I really enjoy this entire series also. And then she has one that is set, I believe it's in London, but this particular one is The Phoenix and the Ashes. But again, there's a lot of magic. It's set in kind of, I would say maybe 1800s-ish, but it follows a different cast of characters throughout the series, but you'll also have characters that move in and out that are pretty stable characters. But there's romance, there's magic, there's mystical creatures, and I think it does follow a lot of fairy tale-esque or fable storylines. I think in one of them you have a Selkie, which is kind of like a mermaid, but they can lose their coat and not be able to return to the sea. But again, I really enjoy the series, really enjoy the world, and really enjoy the characters. And that is Mercedes Lackey. My cats are just all over the place. The last author that I want to share with you in this video is Robin Hobb, and I've actually seen a few people talk about her recently, but this one is The Assassin's Apprentice. So we follow Fitz, who is the illegitimate child of the king, and it's kind of a tradition that when there's an illegitimate child, they are brought up and trained to be the secret assassin for the kingdom. But I do really enjoy this series. It's an interesting world, interesting characters. Sometimes Fitz has some things that he does that I don't necessarily agree with, but I do really enjoy this series. I also have the Live Ship Traders. So this one is the Ship of Magic. also by Robin Hobb, and we follow the main character. I do not remember her name, but she wants to inherit the family live ship, which is a very expensive ship that is commissioned to be built by this other race of people, or this other, by these people who live in, I think they call them the River Wilds. And these ships, as they are passed down throughout a family, they create a bond with that ship, and it's just a very sought after, very, it's a very coveted type of ship. And her family has fallen on hard times, and I don't remember which family member it is, but they take over the ship and they start running slaves, which she absolutely doesn't agree with. And the ship is actually taken over by a pirate who wants to create a bond with the ship. But I really enjoyed this series also, and I would recommend it. And then lastly, this one is if I can say it right, The Shaman's Crossing. So this one's the Tawny Man. Oh no, sorry. Tawny Man and Farseer trilogies are some of the other ones. This one follows a young man whose father is very strict, and he wants his son to join a prestigious soldier school and become a soldier just like he was. But there's an encounter that he has, I believe, when he's out in the wilderness with some of the indigenous people of this country, and he becomes, I guess, involved with one of their deities, and there's a sickness that plagues the soldier school that he attends that ends up killing many of the students and faculty there. But I just remember it being a little bit strange. I really enjoy him as a character. Some of the plot gets really weird, but again, it's not my favorite of her series, but it is another one that I really enjoyed. Let me see if I can pick up the entire stack without knocking them over. But yeah, these are some of my all-time favorite books, some of my all-time favorite authors. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've heard of any of them, if you've read any of them, if you have any recommendations that are similar. I do want to do another video later on listing some of my favorite authors from my childhood, but they are for a younger generation, younger readership, children's books, so on and so forth. And I also want to do a video of more recent books that have been favorites. But again, I hope you enjoyed, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, and I will talk to you next time. See ya. Bye-bye.